And we're live. Hello and welcome to the 125th episode of Game Theory Gang. I'm Maddie Allen with Fast Abdul. Welcome.
Hey, Maddie. Thanks for having me, man.
Yeah. We're going to have ChrispyMan joining us here in just a moment. But today's topic is all three different court cases. Well, at least three court cases that have been affecting the Hex community. We've got updates on them. So that'll be cool.
That is cool. I actually had people asking me questions about that today, and I didn't feel like I had all the data, so I'm hoping that you have more than me.
Yep. I don't know if you can cancel out your wind or move inside or something that'll help people's ears, but I can tell you right away that the first update is about Kareem. We're hoping that he'll get out today or tomorrow. I'm waiting to hear back from Yoon, and the community has come together to help make this happen. It would be quite a beautiful story if there weren't so many haters involved, but at the end of the day, I'm really pumped up that Kareem will be out, and he'll probably be coming on several streams as he's apparently indicated. So the community misses him and wish, doesn't want him to be sitting in jail, and so he's getting out.
Okay, that's cool. It'd be cool if he came on streams. I think that'd be, it'd be an opportunity for him to tell his side of the story and for him to pay it back because, create some content, man, like talk about Hex, talk about Pulse Chain, pay back what we've done for you by doing that. That'd be great.
Yeah, I mean, last time he was on the show every week, I think the price went from a third of a penny in Hex all the way up to 55 cents. So not bad for a community-wide effort.
Yeah, that's great.
So awesome. Yeah, so the second update that we have regarding court stuff has to do with the class action lawsuit against Binance in terms of them suppressing the ranking of Hex and so on and so forth. And I actually have a clip to play from Johnny Chaos. We've got a 3.5 minute clip here to give a little bit of the insight into why he thinks that they did anything wrong in the first place. So yeah, here we go. I think I'm going to take us down for this and play it kind of in between there. Here we go.
You guys know why I made this my mission? Let me tell you why I made this my mission. You will not hear this from mainstream crypto. Why? Because mainstream crypto has Binance sponsorships. Binance owns CoinMarketCap, okay? There have been influencers, known influencers, that said good things about Hex and lost their sponsorships. That's manipulation, guys. Your sponsorship being held over your head. People asked and questioned why CoinMarketCap was doing that. They lost their sponsorship money. You understand that? So, Crypto Ran, you probably will not cover this. BitBoy probably will not cover this. Okay? Altcoin Daily is not going to cover this. Ivan on Tech is not going to cover this. Okay? No mainstream influencer is going to cover this or speak out against it because they are scared that it's going to hurt them in their pocket, which is cowardly because if you are recommending these sites and promoting them as fair and trusted data, you are compromised. You are not questioning. You are not questioning authority. You don't care as long as the paycheck clears, right? Is that fair to your viewers? Is that fair to your people? To say, oh yeah, I only use this site because this site is correct. This is the proper listing. If it's not here, it doesn't exist. Either that or maybe you're not that educated enough to understand what you're selling and what you're promoting. Maybe you don't understand what market cap is. Maybe you don't understand how these systems work. Maybe as a authority in this space, you better start figuring it out. How about that? Figure it out. But I know, you don't want to lose your sponsorship money, and people have. Anybody that said anything good on these subjects, boom, they get their sponsorship money pulled, right? You see, the difference is we're not here as influencers taking sponsorships and letting that compromise us, okay? We're true speakers. We're here to tell you what's really going on, to really spell it out for you. Now, whether or not you want to listen or not, that's totally up to you. You don't have to. You can follow your favorite influencer right off a cliff. We don't care. You know the business of crypto. You know the hot 10 coins to get you rich are sponsored spots. You know that influencers are paid. You know that influencers have handles. We're not influencers, guys. We're a team. We're team crypto, man. We're cheering for our favorite coins, and we like this space, and we want to see this space grow, and we want all this garbage out. We want all this pay-per-play shit out. It's supposed to be a decentralized thing. It's supposed to be a fair and even playing field. It's not a fair and even playing field. It's a pay-per-play field. And the people that have to take the sponsorships to pay their bills are going to support that because that's their job. Us, on the other hand, we don't have to do that. We are beholden to no sponsors. We're not beholden to Richard. We're not beholden to any of these listing sites. We're not beholden to anything. We can say whatever the hell we want, and that makes us dangerous. And that's why you have been told not to listen to those crazy Hexagon guys, because they might tell you something. They might tell you something they don't want you to know.
Yeah.
Cool. Lots of energy from Johnny.
Oh yeah. And yeah, I mean, this has been going on ever since it got announced at the biggest Hex conference in person of all time back on 3/6 through 9 of 22 that I organized. Actually, maybe it was the first meetup that we ever had that was before that was in June of 21, that where it was actually announced. It was one of those two times that the actual Hexagon lawyers that started it, and then Johnny had paid for it. So it was, and then it was eventually handed off. People thought that the case was dead, but apparently it was being appealed, and now it's been reopened, and that was big news here. Just in the general crypto space, and there were lots of reactions to this from our community. Lots of people, getting excited about the idea of getting some justice here, if nothing else.
I like it. It is kind of a big deal too. Like the nature of the court case was that they were suppressing the hex position on the charts. Like it was stuck at number 201, right? Isn't that
yes.
just yeah? So like when it should have been on some days probably number 20, right? Like it's a big difference.
Yeah, and CoinMarketCap they had announced these criteria that you had to be listed on a centralized exchange ahead of time, basically at a certain point. And then at another point, they were acquired by Binance. And then it was pretty well known that Hex was suppressed down to 201. But they were claiming that they were like a fair and trusted site, that they weren't editorializing, and that they weren't manipulating the market. And that like really stopped people from being able to see what was really on there, when they were instead favoring their own coins, which is that's another example of market manipulation. So I haven't like read all the court documents here, so I'm not an expert on it. And I know Nuclear Herbs, a community member who provides a commentary with no legal advice, but is very knowledgeable about legal issues. He had created a super long post today that that people are finding helpful to explain the situation.
Cool. Yeah, he's an actual lawyer. Isn't that his claim to fame? Or was
Yes.
a lawyer at one time, like practice law?
Yes.
Okay. Yeah. Well, that's cool. That's a great resource for us. But yeah, like any news is good news as far as cases like this go. But like I remember looking at Hex like back in the day, it was actually a pretty big deal that it was like in position 201, right? Like, and very few things didn't gatekeep Hex in some way. I remember the only one that didn't, that of note anyway, was Nomics, I believe it was called, and they basically got shut down somehow, right? Like they closed up shop. That used to be my go-to. So like it'd be cool if you could actually see the real numbers when you look at data websites that are advertising themselves as providing data, and to actually see the reality of things. Yeah, that seems useful.
Yeah, and then there were times when when CoinMarketCap would glitch when they would do a system update. It would glitch and it would show Hex in the top 10. And then they would have to manually suppress it again. And so that's like further. I actually, I never thought about this until today, but one of my buddies bought Hex one of the days that CoinMarketCap stopped gatekeeping it. And that goes to show you that a lot of people were just waiting for the gatekeeping to stop before they would even participate in the market. And that was like the first time that he bought Hex was when we thought that they were just listing it fairly for once, like that they were going to, that it was a turning point, when instead the site had just glitched and then they took it away again. So,
which is a perfect example of why this court case had to happen, because it caused financial damage by lying about the reality of the situation. Whereas people like your friend who are like, oh, it's number 10 by market cap or whatever ratio was sorting at, could actually get real data. And because they couldn't get that data, they may choose to not make a purchase with their own funds, which could affect the price, right? So what CoinMarketCap did affected the price. Seems like an obvious thing that actually happened, and yeah, they should be sued for that. They lied, they should pay. Why not?
Yeah, and the case had gotten thrown out based on jurisdiction, which apparently a higher court said it's back on or whatever, and so that's interesting. Another point to note is that Nomics had allowed Hex to be in the top 5, as it rightfully was, when it had hit about 17 cents. I think I saw a screenshot today that Hex was number 3. And then Nomics started manually suppressing the rank once it was clear that Hex could surpass Ethereum and Bitcoin. And so it just goes to show that Hex was really in the position that it was in a higher rank than Binance was. And I'm not sure if Binance had a stable coin at that time as well that was being propped up, but yeah, it's this is all relevant crypto history from just the last cycle. We're only halfway through the second cycle of Hex here, so still a lot more innings in the game, you could say.
Yep, cool. But I think like the concept of this going in front of judges, and judges are looking at Hex and the details of Hex prior to the Richard Hart court case with the SEC bodes very well, right? Like judges are smart people who read stuff. They've chosen to read about this. It's now gonna, and case law is a thing. So this case law would be on the books prior to the Richard Hart court case with the SEC in October. That sounds like a good thing to me. I am not a lawyer, not legal advice.
I don't think that they affect each other at all.
Really? Okay.
But that's okay. It's like that's actually how Nuclear Herbs had started out his post, was basically saying like, something. He was saying something clever about how it doesn't matter if it's a security or a commodity when it's being accused of like market manipulation is kind of what I got from it. But yeah, it'll be interesting for the community to digest that and to come up with more takes and more information. But it's breaking news today and last night, so that's exciting. And then we have a third legal update. And this has to do with the South Carolina thing. This is a class action lawsuit against Hex, and
Is that the hot dog guy one?
Yeah. Okay. People will remember that like Ben Dubard, volunteered to be the person who intervenes on behalf of all the Hexicans that don't want Hex to be sued, because it isn't part of for lots of reasons. And so I put out like a super detailed tweet today that explained kind of my take on the update bit, just based on the publicly available information and doing my own research. And Nuclear Herbs, he said that he hadn't read everything in the case so far, and indicated kind of like where I might have gotten a little bit of wording wrong, but maybe not. At the end of the day, though, he was saying that it's not common for this type of thing to be granted, where it gets effectively like thrown out based on procedural errors. However, from my interpretation, it does look like it's going to the Supreme Court of South Carolina. That the paperwork's been submitted to see if the Supreme Court will take the case. And just to run through this really quick, the Florence Court says that the case is stayed. Circuit Court, or maybe the whatever Nuclear Herbs called that, but this is what it said on the paperwork. It said the Circuit Court filed the case, or like categorized the case as in abeyance, and both of those mean on hold, usually for months, because an appeal had been made to the South Carolina Supreme Court. And then I kind of like go into this side note that Sami says the curse on Hex is lifting, so that's exciting. But the basis of the appeal is that the Hague Convention wasn't followed in terms of serving our age.
People and stuff, or what?
Like, this one has to do with like international service, to like say you're being sued. And
forgive me if I'm wrong, but aren't we talking about like $400 or something, like that hot dog guy lost?
This is a class action lawsuit that's supposedly on behalf of everybody who's ever bought Hex. So
anybody who's ever lost money in crypto could be part of it in theory.
So this is like hundreds of millions of dollars that they're trying to apply it to. However, as we've talked about this on the show before, and seeing massive, people coming together and massive support for the idea of not suing. Okay, so the basically the issue is that it's argued that RH was never served, but the Common Pleas Court proceeded as if he was, and states can't violate international treaties. And so I said here, the ambulance chasing lawyers violated court procedure when they initially concealed the identity of the hot dog vendor without first getting permission from the court, ? Oops, ×1. Then they hired a private investigator, who told the court he only looked for Richard in the USA, but the lawyers knew RH hadn't lived in the USA for over a decade? Question mark. The SEC served RH, but these guys didn't? Question mark. Oops, times 2. And here's where it gets, like, here's another like important thing. Carolinians suffered irrelevant subpoenas flying around where they shouldn't have, violating several people, and locking up Trevon James in jail for 2 nights because he didn't respond. Beyond oops. And then the circuit court or whatever the equivalent is. But again, that's what I saw it say on the paperwork. So that the higher court then denied the order of protection against subpoena and motion to reconsider. There's also the issue of a new alternative service law that may not have been properly followed. So this could be a bad precedent for all cases in the entire state. And it's the novel law issue that may also concern the state Supreme Court, that they want to deal with it. And then I was noting kind of like humorously that the timing of this appeal is unusual and baller, because appeals usually happen after a case is decided, not at the beginning/middle. However, a strong argument is made that's been made in the past in South Carolina is that the courts held if you proceed with broken procedure, you're kind of agreeing to it. So that may justify the appeal happening this early, and hopefully the courts agree with that strong argument. In my opinion, like a case that's on hold due to it being throw out a bull asterisk is much better than a case that's just taking a long time. Throw outable ain't a legal term, just an oversimplification. The court has the power and they haven't decided yet. They could decide to reject the appeal and have the lower court proceed. All of this info comes from my own research. I already said that before. This is not legal, financial, or therapy advice. I'm not a legal professional of any kind. I'm using my free speech. Check the facts and critically think for yourself, please. There you go. That's the third update.
Okay. That seems pretty solid. I think that the concept of anybody who's ever lost money on any crypto token could sue the founder of said token is pretty ridiculous. And I'm sure that will come out in court as a ridiculous thing. Because if you could do it with crypto, why can't you do it with a stock? I bought a stock and the price went down. Can I sue you? Do I have to give the money back if the stock goes back up? Like, how does that work? It doesn't make any sense.
I mean, so part of their argument is that Hex is a security, and those of us who have been studying it for 4.5 years, strongly disagree. And however, it's the process of the court to determine that themselves. And so I think anybody living outside of the United States, you don't have to live in terror, knowing that you can get sued for anything at any time, and it might not even be that good of a lawsuit. In this case, that's why we had, that's why the Hex community rallied around the idea of intervening, is because it doesn't seem right to us who believe in decentralization and doing your own research and self-custody and all of these things, that people, they didn't even listen to what Richard said about dollar cost averaging and not buying tops, and how he bought the top in Bitcoin in the beginning, and that ended up working out. So
yeah, DCA in, DCA out. That's pretty good advice, generally speaking. Moderation is often the key to success in life.
Yeah. And I mean, Hex is just computer code that you run yourself anyway. It doesn't even map on to the same language that is being used in these securities determinations. And so, yeah, I'm hoping that like the courts far and wide, like that all of them are able to get to the truth and to be able to understand it. We knew that Hex was innovative, and so that has pros and cons.
Yeah, mostly just it pissed off people who were in control of the money, so now they're looking for revenge. I think that's why there's so much controversy surrounding Hex. Is it wasn't VC funded bullshit that paid out the right people on the right days to participate. Not financial advice.
However, it was given free to Bitcoin holders.
Free. So how does free work into being a security?
Oh, well, that it doesn't. It doesn't support the security argument, but it, it's like,
okay.
What were you Bitcoin guys doing? Giving it like for all right. So for every one Bitcoin, all you had to do was sign a transaction to prove that you held the keys yourself, and then you could feed it into the Hex website. It was hex.win back then, and that would get you 10,000 Hex, and as like a beautiful courtesy, I believe like a large percentage of that was time locked for a year for you, and so I think it would come out like right before big payday or something. So you'd have to like play along,
10,000
right?
Potentially at like a high, potentially $5,000, right?
That's where I was going with this, because at the time, right before Hex launched, Richard was busy calling the bottom on Bitcoin, and Bitcoin had bottomed at like 3,900 or something like that. And so people even people who were just they didn't believe in Hex at all, and they were just buying Bitcoin, for under $5,000, then could have gotten another $5,000, a couple years later, just from the free claim of Hex and selling at the top. So yeah, it's
well, that's terrible. We should definitely sue that guy.
Right? Yeah. Well,
free money like to people who are participating in decentralized finance, like it's got to be illegal somewhere, like in Zimbabwe or I don't know, some authoritarian country that must be against the law.
Well, yeah. So we're covering today on the show, like on one hand, a class action lawsuit against Binance, who's like, a centralized gatekeeping scum. And then, we're talking about not having class action lawsuit against this like decentralized community that stands for what crypto is meant to be in the first place. And so, somebody who's zoomed out way too far, they could be like, what do you mean? Like, why do you support one and not the other? But it becomes pretty clear if you draw the lines of removing middlemen and all these things that Bitcoin was founded on. It becomes pretty clear like where the divide is.
Yeah, for sure. I think the same people that want to, sue Richard Hart for making something that wasn't a security are the same ones that will probably try to outlaw self-custody wallets, that sort of thing. We're seeing that kind of action in Europe right now, where they're pushing for non-KYC to be a non-option. For self-custody, MetaMask or Rabby or anything where you're holding the keys to your own crypto to not be an option. So I think that's the next move those same people are going to participate in. So everything matters here. It matters that people stand up and say their part whenever they can for things like the Richard Hart case against the SEC, because the next thing they do is going to be try to take the keys to your MetaMask wallet, right? Like it's it's not going to stop. Right. This isn't the last time. They'll go as far as they can. So, yeah, it'd be great if we could just end it now.
Yeah. I mean, you want Richard Hart and the Hex case at the SEC federal level to win, because you don't want smart contracts being able to be called entities and being sued by the government. That creates a terrible precedent that affects all of crypto. And I'm not talking about the crypto that isn't crypto, which is where somebody else is holding your keys like a middleman. I'm talking about the only version of crypto that's real crypto, which is holding your own keys and having decentralized, the ability to do a decentralized exchange, for example.
I unfortunately I went fishing this morning and I dropped my keys into the lake behind me here. And so they're gone. So I'm afraid I won't be able to give them up to anyone. And yeah, I apologize to any governments who are inquiring about this. But the concept
that's a common tax strategy, unfortunately.
Oh, really? Interesting. Okay. The concept of suing
I pay my taxes
contract number is ridiculous, though. Like, how could you sue a protocol that floats on the interweb and cannot be connected to any person, place, or thing? Like, where are you gonna go? Where are you gonna send the letter?
It would be like suing like a paragraph in a book, or it'd be like suing a painting, right? That those are like clear examples of free speech, and code is a clear example of free speech, and code that you run on your own, where like the founders never sold a token, and it was launched in a decentralized way. Yeah, I mean it's pretty clear to us experts, and
good luck with that.
Hoping the rest of the world catches
not
up.
Gonna work.
There was a funny comment that Hexologist made today, because he was reading one of the news articles talking about how Binance is the lawsuit's back on for Binance suppressing Hex, and in the article, articles typically like try to show both sides, although they're still like manipulating the information. And so when they were explaining what is Hex and what is Richard Hart, they're like, oh, the founder, he's being sued by the SEC for supposedly misappropriating funds of $12 million or whatever that he didn't spend on the development of the tokens. And Hexologist is sitting there like, wait a second, do these people not know that spending the funds on development could make it a security? Like in one, which really, you have to meet all four legs of the Howey test, and so just that one thing wouldn't make it a security. However, it's ironic that people are arguing that he did something wrong whenever it was very clear the entire time that there were no expectations, and that these were not funds being raised to like develop a product. Quite the opposite. These were funds being sacrificed when massive gains had been had, and people who send crypto, like sending crypto is the most final financial transaction you can do, because there are no chargebacks. And like, that's one of the key features of what crypto is that it has something called transaction finality, which means like once you send it, it's not yours anymore. And like by running the crypto code yourself, you are like you're literally signing a transaction to prove that you understand that. There's no takebacks and there's no expectations when you send something on chain. And so, yeah, it's particularly interesting that these articles, that there are even aspects of the industry that are becoming centralized and don't understand even what they're reporting on. Go figure.
Yeah. No, I agree. That's I don't know. It just seems so obvious that like the law is clear on what things should be, but it's, if it doesn't work out the way it should, it will just be corruption, and there'll be no way to prove to me that it's not just corruption, that something so obvious didn't work out. But I I don't know. I have some confidence that it will work out. I think that the tide is changing, and DeFi might be rolling in. I think our time is coming.
I hope so. Yeah, and in general, in the courts in America, the judges have been finding in favor of crypto 4 out of 5 times or more, based on my count, and that's been really incredible to see, and something that gives me a lot of hope, because that's what checks and balances are for. Even if you have a corrupt SEC, there are still judges that respect the law and hold the law of the land as basically what matters. And then, even though there's lawfare happening where people have to pay lots of money and suffer just for being accused of something, even if you're not being accused in good faith, so to speak. I think that at least it's not a complete dictatorship, Orwellian nightmare 110% yet.
Yeah, no, I agree. I don't think, the apocalypse is not upon us at the moment. In fact, I think the opposite is probably true. We're going to be in a more fruitful time than we've ever been in before. I think a lot of things people point to as signs of the apocalypse are actually the opposite. It's people with too much time on their hands. And, I think we are in the right place to capitalize on that with being in crypto. I think there's going to be a natural flow to this part of the world, this part of the market.
I like your optimism. I can't tell you which way the market's going to go in the short term, but I think long term, the money printer go burr and interest rates being lowered at some point, I think will generally help the crypto market. I have been seeing Ethereum bouncing around. It's sitting around $2,700 last time I looked, and Bitcoin, what is it, in between 59 and 61K?
Yeah, it's right around 60,000. I hear the ratio of Ethereum to Bitcoin is going up, which is good for us. Being a altcoin market, you want Ethereum to do better proportionally to Bitcoin. So that's one of the things I have on the calendar.
Yeah, it was looking that way for a couple days, but I don't know if it's still trending the right way. We'll see. I definitely hope that we get a better altcoin market or a better altcoin season than we have been. And then in terms of the Pulse chain prices, we're sitting almost pretty much near the all-time low for Pulse chain.
Yeah.
Let me bring up the exact numbers here, and I can show that here on screen.
We have the technology.
We have the technology to do this. Oops, I increased the size of the wrong window. Here we go. So this is from like the all-time low. Pulse is only up 12%, whereas in the past it's been up 100% or more. Well, no, way more than that. It's been up maybe 400% after I'm talking about after the all-time low was set in like December, January. Then in March it went on, or like basically between the end of the Hex conference in January to the March, it just went on this great run, doing a 5 to 10x between these different tickers, which is 500 to 1,000%. And we see like a divergence here in that PulseX has outperformed Pulse since the all-time low, being up 136%. And so the ratio there is really interesting, being one PulseX for every being 1.77 Pulse for every PulseX. I think I'm reading that right. And then Incentive token also went on a great run and has had relative strength compared to its all-time low, which was much lower than these other assets. And so it's been the more volatile one, and it's currently up almost 400% from its all-time low. And then Hex still sitting actually below what they've marked here on this website as the all-time low. So for P-Hex, you're sitting at just under half a penny. And then Inc. is around $2. PulseX is 4 zeros and a 2. And Pulse Chain is 4 zeros and a 3.7.
So Pulse X is not down as much as Pulse at the moment, right? But we've seen those things switch places before. So I don't know. I feel pretty confident that this is a good time to get into Pulse in particular. I'm not saying it's a good time to get out of any of these other tickers. So what about Hex? Historically, how's the Hex price looking right now? We'll say Hex on the blockchain for clarity.
Yeah, it's like the all-time low. I'm just going to do combined so we can go all the way back. The all-time low was 0.00005, and that's 100 times, almost 100 times lower than we are here. However, the starting price of Hex on day one, right? So the all-time low is day 33. The day one price was a third of a penny. And so we're maybe 20% above the all-time low price. Or sorry, from the day one price, you're not up 100x, you're up less than 1x. And then from the all-time high, we're down 100x from 55 cents. And so seems to be like a very middle ground there with being almost exactly up 100x and down 100x at the same time.
Not boring. So in the chat, we have Mr. Or Mrs. Cookies and Cream is asking, is Sack Daddy still buying the dip? I think that's a relevant question. I'm going off of memory here. I haven't seen a lot of news about Sack Daddy or another entity buying up the Pulse chain lately. But in the future, what do you think, Maddie? Is that something that will likely happen again, where a entity who perhaps controls sacrifice funds buys up some of these tokens?
Could be. I think the last time we saw a small buy was maybe 4 to 8 weeks ago, somewhere in there. 1 to 2 months ago, there was a buy that just tapped up the PulseX price, I believe, without buying any of the other things. And then it was, I guess, in between January and March when the majority of the buying was happening from the quote unquote like origin address or whatever. Yeah, so that's something that I believe like the history was proven that like that's a possibility, like
well, that's
those
one
funds,
of the main utilities of Inc. is sometimes this billionaire guy buys it. So it's not a bad utility to have if you can get it.
Yeah, and what we saw during the Hex conference and right afterwards that I hosted in January was that it wasn't just the OA that was buying, it was also the God whale that was buying. And so there seems to be often like healthy competition between these billionaires where they'll buy together. And then another thing that you see is that like the community and like other people will also buy at the same time as well. This is part of like human psychology of green candles being the best marketing and like people like, proving to themselves that, which really isn't, that's not always the best strategy per se. However, my advanced like take on this after being in crypto for 7 or 8 years now is like, almost everybody buys atop their first cycle. And that's part of like getting into crypto, is that like, you've got maybe 60 or 70 or 80 or 90% of people like that are in crypto bought a top when they started. And then if they're still in, they were dollar cost averaging over time, getting a better deal and really, really doing well in between their second and their third cycle. And so the first cycle is kind of, and I've talked to people on Twitter Spaces that are in this community that are like, they bought the bottom, and it's because they learned from other people, and they just had a lot of self-control.
So if that thing was going to keep going, if the entity controlling the SAC funds was going to keep buying, where do you think they would focus? Of the three coins we have on the screen here, which I think are the ones in question, we can probably safely say that Hex on Ethereum is not a contender, though that could be completely wrong. Which one do you think they would focus the most financial energy on?
I think that there could be some like really deep game theory of like what they would buy, and that it would be based on the market conditions at that time, in the sense that like if you're buying hundreds of millions of dollars or tens of millions of dollars of pulse chain assets, we've seen in the past that like that it was pointed out by whales or by the founder that you could get a better price, based on Hart's law and based on where the liquidity is, and based on what you're coming from. And so there's been commentary of like, oh, you're getting a better deal now if you bridge a stable versus if you bridge ETH, or you're getting a better deal if you're bridging ETH than, and so basically what I see though is the reason why PulseX and Inc move up harder versus just Pulse Chain is because those have less liquidity paired with ETH. And so if somebody comes in and they use a bunch of ETH to buy a PulseX and Inc, and they don't go through, basically, it's going to route through Pulse anyway, but they're going to get higher slippage. And, so there might be a complex strategy based on how many millions of dollars somebody's moving in, where maybe they would want to move into Pulse first or have some other advanced strategy. And so I could see something with like liquidity providing, limit orders. I could see, and it really depends, like what's their goal? Do they want to just like pump up the numbers of everything? Or, would they do an insane market buy of Inc only because that has the highest liquidity, in terms of like 30% or more of it, of the entire supply being for sale between liquidity pairs? What do you think?
I got some pretty crazy ideas, Maddie. I'm not sure if they're suitable for all audiences, but let's do it anyway. I think the Inc token is likely to be the tip of the spear as far as what a sacrifice wallet might pump to make the other things pump. The reason being that if the price of the Inc token doubles, then people who are receiving the Inc token for yield in the farms, their yield automatically doubles. So if you're making 40%, then you're making 80%, which will mean people will want to enter the farms. So that will make them go out. They'll have to purchase more of the things that are in the farms, primarily which are the three ones on the screen. So you'd have to buy more, or four rather. You'd have to buy more PulseX, Inc, and Hex to participate in the farms, which would push up the price of all four tokens. And so that would increase the entire ecosystem, and not in a low liquidity, like, oh, there's only $10,000 in liquidity, so I could take $1 million and pump it up 10,000 times. No, in a real way where people could come in, they could get out, and it would be a sustainable pump to the ecosystem. Now, on top of that, since I think that we're dealing with an entity that is extremely intelligent and is playing, 6D chess with the Pulse chain, with the crypto markets in general, that they're likely to use tools that other founders have created on the Pulse chain. And I think the most immediate ones that come to mind for me, as far as how they could do that, is using leverage with things like liquid loans, and then the two other liquidity forks that we have, which are Flex and Earn. So basically, liquidity being stablecoin protocols that take collateral in the form of other tokens, right? And this is a very established format. Hey, Johnny.
Hey.
But there's three liquidity forks. One takes Pulse, which is liquid loans. One takes Hex, which is Flex, and one takes Pulse X as collateral. The entity could use their bags of these things to create stable coins that they could then use to further pump the price of all the tokens in question, perhaps with some liquidations or redemptions, which is a more complex subject, as part of the game, redistributing those tokens to strong hands in the ecosystem. And it could be a frickin' party. That's what
Johnny and I flinched when you said 80% in the ink farms. Personally, I don't think that that necessarily the OA would want to outpace Hex itself. But Johnny, you've jumped on here. What would you like to comment on?
Well, I think we're deep in the speculation zone.
Oh yeah.
Really, really deep into the speculation zone. And guys, let's be truthful here. We are not on the bull run right now. We've got, Bitcoin moved prematurely. The first time it's ever moved like it has, before, in a happening year. It spiked really high there. A lot of that probably had to do with the ETF craze and such like that. We are not seeing things do 50% in a day, 50% in a day, 50% in a day. Okay, we're not seeing bull activity right now. And usually with the cycles, you're talking about 4-year cycle, and it's usually 12 months after the halvening that Bitcoin makes its new all-time high, and then we can pretty much start worrying about what people are going to do and what games they're going to play and all that craziness. But I think we're
4/20, 2025.
Yeah,
because the halvening was exactly on 4/20 this year.
Yeah, so I mean that's really when you're looking at Bitcoin possibly. And now it doesn't mean things aren't going to move. It just means you're not going to get that what you're used to in a bull market, the days of 50% back to back kind of movements and stuff. That doesn't happen until after Bitcoin, traditionally after Bitcoin hits its new all-time high, and traditionally that doesn't happen until 12 months after the halvening. So I think we could see a good spike in October, but it's still not going to be massively significant. It's coming into Pulse, it was always year one was accumulation year. It takes 1 to 2 years for a new chain to be established. We had massive development, on Pulse chain. It's been supported. We've got multiple on ramps. The progress and stuff we've made, everything's there. Everything's primed. Just the interest isn't there. And I think, you guys are talking a little bit about the EHEX PHEX thing. I always have said that, the Ethereum side is closer to the door. Okay. That's going to be the easiest to sell and the easiest to buy, period. And, I know people want to dispute it and people want to take sides and everything, but that's just the fact, and that's just how it is. People that are going to want to get a piece of this ecosystem are probably going to start there first before they make it to bridges. People don't realize that bridges are a scary thing for Ethereum holders. They've been scammed the shit out of trying to use bridges in the past. So to get people to adapt and start to learn to use bridges and trust bridges and feel comfortable with that is going to take a little bit of time. And it's nowhere near as bad as like when we had Matic. Because when we had Matic, you'd lose your money for 72 hours. You'd be like, oh my God, is it coming to the other side? Oh my God. I mean, that was some scary shit back then. I mean, 30 minutes, but see, for us, we're like, oh, 30 minutes, oh, whatever, right? But for somebody else, that's 30 minutes of stress where they're just going, is my money going to make it? Did I just get scammed? Am I going to get it? Is it going through? You got to think from their perspective, not from ours. And I think we sometimes take our education a little bit for granted and just assume, well, everybody knows you. Well, you just this, or you just, they don't know that yet. We're
freaking wizards to them. Like, it's very few people are operating on the level that, the Pulse chain OGs are.
And it's confusing. It's confusing as hell, man. We get into this, talk, and I just went through and listed out like a whole bunch of stuff. It's like, you guys know what this means, this means, this means, this means, this means. Guess what? 90% of crypto's got no clue. We are like 3 years ahead of mainstream crypto, and all they're doing is standing around with their flags cheering institutionalization. I mean, they've totally lost the plot. They've totally forgotten what crypto is supposed to be. I had someone arguing with me, well, decentralization doesn't matter. It's all a myth anyway. It does matter. It does matter whether or not you can be shut off. It does matter whether or not you can access smart contracts, or if the chain could just be shut off. And what is the point of crypto? I mean, if you want centralization, why don't you just go with a database? Databases are much faster, much more reliable. You don't
guy
need
with an Excel spreadsheet could just grab a number for you whenever you wanted. It'd be fast. I know a guy. I could do that. I'm good with Excel. I could be crypto. Why not?
So it's
Exactly.
just crazy. But no, Maddie, I know you were going to talk about the court cases, and I kind of wanted to clarify some stuff and put it out there. As I told you, that the case has been ongoing this whole time. And that's why I told people not to focus on these cases, because, they can take forever. Okay. And people get all worked up in their highs and lows, and they get speculating on what's going to happen. You don't know what's going to happen until the judge slams down the gavel. And that's when you're going to know what the verdict is. And, as far as our case ongoing, this is something people got to understand. Just because one case is dropped, or you hit a dead end and you get a judgment, there are appeals, there are changing your jurisdiction, so you can go at them from another jurisdiction. You get the appeal, like we got the appeal where it said, oh yeah, by the way, they've got some valid facts here. Maybe we were a little too quick to judge this. Maybe we need to take another look at it. So then it goes back to Arizona. So the person that's representing our community, much like Ben DeBard, is representing our community for the North Carolina case, or South Carolina
South
case.
Carolina. Yep.
Okay. Right. We have a person that is appointed by a group of people that funded the retainer for the attorney's office. Okay. So
Nice.
There's a group of people that is not me that have put a person in front to represent the community to pursue this case. And that's what's happened. Because what had happened in the beginning was, yes, it was me that initiated the case. And the reason I initiated the case was because I warned Binance, and they laughed at me. They mocked me. They sent me emails saying, screw you, you scammer, bring it on. So I said, okay, we're going to bring it on.
Yeah.
And I warned them that if we continue down this road, a lot of things are going to be opened up that they don't want looked at. Lo and behold, a lot of things were opened up that they didn't want to look at. So you guys, if you want to do your research, you can look at the complaint that we lodged, and you can compare that complaint to the complaint that was filed against Binance. And you can see where some of that information may sound familiar.
You mean by the DOJ?
Yes. Because once you put things in court writing and you file these proceedings, it has to be looked at. Okay, which is the same reason why you were trying to make sure that precedence wasn't set in the South Carolina case, is because once you file the paperwork, it's on record, which means the judges have access to it. Okay, I'm pretty sure with the judgment against Binance, they had to say, oh, wait a minute. Don't we have one of these? Let's flip back through the paperwork. Oh, we do. Maybe we should take a better look at this, because there is some stuff going on there. Oh, look, some of this stuff matches up. Okay, maybe we should take another look at it. Okay, so this kind of stuff happens.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah, like they had to admit that they're doing business in the U.S., which was like part of the jurisdiction thing that got the class action against Binance.
And that's their fault, because basically they've used an address in Delaware, which is basically an empty building where they have a security guard there, because everybody thinks CMC is this big major company and they're this big trusted source. Sorry, guys. It's a couple guys with admin keys that are working remote, and nobody can find them. They're like ghosts. So those are the guys that you're trusting to tell you what's hot and what's not. Couple random guys with admin keys to a website. It's not a big corporation. They don't do great diligent research. They just keep the website running. And apparently, when they shut it down to add updates, occasionally the truth comes out.
Yeah.
So that's what's going on there. But anyway, so what happens? Let's say the case is dismissed again. All right. We reload and we come at them from another jurisdiction. So it's not over for them. When these cases start going, it's not over. You follow this? It's not over. That is the point of, getting dismissal with prejudice, because it doesn't end. And for everybody out there, you need to understand that this is called business. Lawsuits, business happen all the time. They say in Hollywood, you're nobody until somebody sues you. Okay. This is just par for the course. And what happens is we've got our average people that have had bad experience with law, or they've got some kind of judgment against them, and they get terrified when they hear about this stuff happening. And that's why I said, we really don't need to focus on it, because it's just business as usual. And people aren't quite adept to understand that that's just business as usual. And if you could look up, ask your chat GBT and say, how many lawsuits does the average corporation carry each month? You'd be amazed. They got 30 to 60 cases against them monthly. Okay. You got companies like Whirlpool. You've got companies like Hillron. You've got companies like Tesla. Okay. They carry on the docket the average of 30 to 60 cases against them. And they have teams of attorneys that take care of these things. Okay. They don't even go to court. They just have teams. They run it. They do settlements on the fly and everything else, because this is just normal part of business. In America, you can sue anybody for any or no reason at all. And unfortunately, you have to represent, or otherwise you get default judgments. And that's just how it is. It's just business as usual. It shouldn't scare people. It shouldn't freak you out. It's just how it is. And it's just part of life. So, what is the substance of what Johnny's speaking on the lawsuit against Binance from Hex holders? So the clarification is that basically Binance owns CoinMarketCap. They purchased it originally for $800 million. Okay, and they've actually been utilizing it to manipulate markets, because they get to control what's listed and what's not. They get to charge fees to people to get higher spots and such. They pay influencers to promote them. This is the big one, to promote them as a fair and trusted site, when actuality they're a curator, which means they get to decide whatever they want to list. Now, if they were open and upfront and said, okay, look, we're CoinMarketCap, these are our suggestions. Okay, these are our suggestions. These are the coins that we think that are valued. What the hell happened to Fast Abdul?
Maybe it's a screensaver.
He ran away because I interrupted the regularly scheduled program. But you asked me here, so I just wanted to throw it out.
Yeah, please.
So now I lost my train of thought. The goofy picture killed me.
Yeah, the influencers, they paid them.
Yeah.
And
so you can be a CoinMarketCap representative. They paid the influencers to basically promote them as a fair and trusted site, which is fraud, false advertisement, because basically they're a curator and they get to pick and choose what they want to list where. Okay. So that's really what it comes down to. If they were open and honest about it, and they weren't trying to market themselves as a fair and trusted site, giving fair and transparent data, then they wouldn't have a problem, because a business can do whatever the business wants. But the problem is that's not how they represented themselves. Okay. And 200 million people a month click on that website expecting to get clear and transparent data, and they are not. And if they can hide the number 3 coin, which we were, they can hide anything. And you'll come to find out that Hex is not the only coin that's been suppressed. There are a lot of coins that have been suppressed.
So
And
we flipped their token, which
we flipped
was
their token,
number
and that's
3
when
or
it really
4.
became a problem, is when we flipped Binance.
Yeah.
And that's when the major gatekeeping came into play. And
VC
so anyway,
money. That.
as a result of all of this, because we had to do some detective work and stuff, we have a lot of other things that we came across and found and exposed in that case, as a result of what they were doing, which we would have never discovered, heard of, thought of, had they just listed it properly to begin with. Nor would the case have ever been pursued if they didn't think it was funny to laugh and mock and tease us and act like we didn't have any money to do anything. It would have never came to a case. But they had ample time to do the right thing. We talked to several smart-ass representatives of the company. They sound like a bunch of frat boys. They changed their stuff on their website. We've got all the screenshots, dude. We got like a file like this thick of all the bullshit that they did. So, it's like, anyway, it's never going to end until they deal with us. That's the end. It's never going to end. They will have to deal with us one way or another. The attorneys that we've hired are only going to get paid if they win, and they aren't going to give up now by any means, because there's a lot of money on the line for them, because they're getting a percentage. So no money's coming out of our pocket. We're not raising or asking any money from the community. We're just going to be a thorn in their side until they deal with this and face up to what they've done. Period.
And
it's not really about
CZ,
money. It's about transparency. And this is for the whole crypto market, because we can't have entities running around acting like they're clear and transparent data and lying to everybody.
Yeah. The whatever, the CEO or whatever of Binance, CZ,
yep,
gets out of jail/prison on September 29th. And I saw a comment today from Storyteller 17 that even once he's out of jail, he's been forbidden to do any work related to the company for the next 30 months.
I doubt that. I doubt that. There's no real way to actually track that and keep him away from a computer. So I doubt that. But the point being, this didn't have to be this way. They could have said, "Oh, we made a mistake," or "Oh, let's go ahead and correct that issue." No. It became sheer spite. And if you look at CoinMarketCap right now, we're like rank 3,500 and something right now. They really think it's funny. And there's been several back and forths like that where they really think they got things figured out. And I'd like to see every single one of those little punks locked up, because again, these are not people that are like behaving like adults in any capacity. And the correspondence and stuff that we've recorded kind of shows that.
It's a small world. Like, one day these guys could meet Fast Abdul on an elevator. That is possible.
And that'd be over really fast.
And you'd be interviewing them non-violently, right?
A short interview where we talk about things that I feel emotional about, because I'm an emotional guy.
I don't want people implying any sort of violence.
So CZ,
I want to be clear about
they said CZ was, so we spent a year trying to process serve properly. Okay. And they even hired a SEAL Team 6 to locate him. And other people that were named in the, they actually found houses that were empty and they had like months worth of mail. These people were just like migrant ghosts. They were not staying in the residence that they had listed and everything else. So it was really interesting that these people just could not be found. And that was one of the things that we were able to do was we got special dispensation or whatever you want to call it to service via Twitter. And that is actually a first in the history of all service to be able to serve the first court case, because Hexicans like to do everything first. So we got
That's
to serve
right.
the first court case through, alternate means, and that alternate means being Twitter. And, the thing is, we've set some precedents that have actually come back and kind of bit at us a little bit because we are establishing precedents. But yeah, I don't think the spotlight, it's where CZ actually got in trouble was what he did with FTX. Where he really got in trouble with that is he pissed some people off over that because there were a lot of people that had a lot of money invested in FTX. There were a lot of political parties that were funded by FTX, and that's where he really got into trouble. But some of how FTX was built, and some of what we exposed on how the same way BNB is built, there's some congruencies there on information that may have never came to light actually if we had never put this case forward. So, but anyway, you can send the ninjas out to assassinate me. It doesn't matter because I am not the guy that is actually pursuing the case at this point. I am just the guy that paid the retainer for the cease and desist letter and put the case into motion. But now that it's in motion, whether I'm here or not, it's still going to run. If they continue to fight it, they will just get re-jurisdictioned, and it will continue until we drag them down because we've got nothing but time. So they can pay their attorneys and they can dodge it and they can fight and they can keep writing those attorney bills, but sooner or later it's got to come to a head.
Yeah.
Thank you for your not service, Johnny, in this matter.
My not service?
Yeah.
Well, and that's why you've got a different person as the name of the representative of the community versus me. Because people were asking, they're like, I thought Johnny started it, but like I said, a group of interested people that are Hexicans put together $50,000 without asking anybody for anything, and they paid a retainer to start this process. And like I said, the attorneys only get paid if they win. And the reason I put up the money that I did was I thought the original attorney's office that we hired was going to do that, but they changed and they kind of pawned it off on another attorney, and then they're the ones that are actually pursuing it because and now mind you, they would not be wasting their time if they didn't think that they could win this case. They wouldn't be putting in their efforts if they didn't think they were going to win this case. So. And like I said, these things can go on for years, Guy. If you're looking for some kind of quick resolution for court cases, forget about it. Just take it out of your head right now. What's important you need to know is that Pulse cannot be stopped. Hex cannot be stopped. It doesn't matter what the verdict is. They cannot be stopped. And if you are in crypto, it doesn't matter where you go. Because if you've got a government that is anti-crypto, what do you expect? I mean, you really have to say that. If it's too scary for you, go ahead and tap out. But what's the alternative? What is the alternative?
Get a new government?
Because I want to know. Hey, Crispy.
Bang, bang.
What's up?
And now.
So there we go. That should just about cover my area of the case.
That's some quality.
I guess follow Nuclear Herbs because he's going to be reporting on it daily or whatever. But again, guys, just don't get worked up about it. Okay, don't get all worked up about it because these things happen all the time and they can go on forever. The point is, we're not going to let anybody sit here and disrespect us. If they're going to call us out on it, I didn't have a choice. I didn't have a choice but to press it forward. What was I going to do? Go, okay, well, I was just bluffing. Let me just go hide in my corner. No, screw that. These guys are doing illegitimate shit, and they need to be called out on it. Period.
Yeah. Thanks, Johnny.
Crispy bacon. I'm watching Fast over here chew bacon while Johnny's talking.
We crossed over my my dinner time here. My wife is concerned about my health.
That's why you're outside with the bacon.
I actually spent most of the day roofing, putting shingles on my cabin. So it's yeah, I'm hungry.
Nice.
It's all good, man. Bacon's one of the best things. Well, not for everybody, right? So I'll go off that topic.
How many folks you got watching here, Maddie?
Well, StreamYard's lying and saying 458, but from what I can tell on YouTube, there's 113.
Woohoo!
Yeah, anybody got any questions for me why I'm available here? Because I'm gonna skate off and let you guys carry on with the rest of your show.
Do you believe in the future of Hex?
Do you believe in the
yeah.
future? I hope so.
Okay. Cool.
I hope so.
And what about Pulse Chain?
Hell yeah.
All right. Well, you heard it here, folks. You might have heard it somewhere else, but you also heard it here.
We finally have a chain that is supported and being developed on at an exponential rate. We have multiple direct on-ramps now. Okay. I have not seen anything grow like this in a year on any blockchain. Now, you see stuff like Solana that, of course, were promoted by all the people that were paid to promote Solana, and they got lots of traction and high price performance. And wait until all those unlocks come out, guys. You're going to love that. You're going to love that when those unlocks come dumping on your head. But nonetheless, as far as development,
VCs are your friends. Oh.
Yeah, VCs are friends. But as far as development, where have you seen like the exponential development that we've had? I mean, look at the amount of websites and stuff that we have up. Not even talking about just like projects or things that are built, but just the number of community websites alone. The data that's out there, and it's just amazing. A lot of the developers are kind of unsung heroes because we have like over 200 websites, and we're not, we're just talking data sites and stuff like Crispy's. He's got hexfire.io. I mean, that's, this is stuff that the community has put together. Who is doing that for their community? Where are the other communities? I do not see 70 streamers for other coins. I see a lot of paid shills that pop up. I see people with 50 followers that starting their YouTube channel for the first damn time going, oh yeah, I buy Solana. And, I mean, but where do you see what we've got here? You don't. You just don't.
Yeah, I happen to agree. I happen to agree with you on that quite a bit. We have so much development that is going on. I do have a question for you about Hex, though. What do you make, of the situation? I know you watch some of the things that I have to come out. But what do you make of the situation where we've seen a reduction of T-shares staking of something like 60,000?
I'm loving it. Is what I'm loving. I'm loving it. Is what I'm loving it.
So what I'm referring to, Maddie, is that since last year, the number of T-shares that were staked last year, we have 60% less T-shares.
Yep.
Being staked out into that 2039 period.
See, people don't follow you, Crispy. It's funny because it's like people don't. They won't actually understand until they end a 4-year stake and they go, oh my God, where are my T-shares? How am I going to get them back? Until they end like that 4-year stake, it really doesn't kick in. A 2-year stake, it's just not enough. It's
T-shirt years.
People have to go through the 5 stages of grief first, right?
5 stages of grief.
Yeah, all the stuff. You get mad. It's not my fault. It's somebody else's fault. You fight people.
Oh, grief. I thought you said the 5 stages of Kareem.
No,
he's the
grief.
555 guy.
Oh, well.
Grief, because what I'm getting at is this: at some point, people either they'll get it or they won't, but they'll capitulate. So the way I've been framing it up lately, as I'm looking at it, is this is like relaunch of Hex, 2.0, and so we get. And it's not that it's been relaunched, of course, it's still there, but a lot of the flack that we see. It's definitely a reset.
It's definitely a reset, but the thing is, T-shares are 3 times more expensive in hex terms than they were, even at the same price. That's the part that people miss, right?
Yeah.
It's not 10,000 hex for a T-share; it's 30,000. And in 2.5 years, it'll be 60,000. In 2.5 years, it's 120,000. That's the part they totally miss. So you got a 4-year stake, okay? You've more than doubled. You've almost tripled the cost of your T-shares in 4 years. So you go to buy them back, even if you stake 555, they ain't coming back.
Yeah, I think you'll get this better than anybody else. I'll talk directly at you, Johnny. When I'm looking at Hex and I'm using the use case, right? The use case being delayed gratification, pushing the Hex out into the future and all that. You naturally come to the conclusion that you also need to have liquidity, not liquidity as in LP, but liquidity as in the asset, right? Because that's what allows you to do things like sell it at market tops, right? And so that's the biggest criticism people had. I stacked my Hex up, blah, blah, blah. It's out there. I couldn't get to it. So I couldn't sell it at the top. So as I'm looking at ladders, I'm like, well, how do I make sure in the future I actually have liquidity of Hex? Right, because we are in this to earn Hex in order to at least scrape some of it out, right? I mean, the people are in crypto for that reason, and I've come to the conclusion that the best way I can, if I'm participating in Hex in 15 years, which I expect to be, and I want to have monthly stakes come out, I better get my stakes in now, right? So it could potentially be, in a successful version of all this, right? It could potentially be so expensive to get Hex, and it'll cost so much Hex to get a T-share that I might as well put my T-share rungs in now, and then that is multiplied by the fact that so few other people are doing that it's like a huge opportunity. I mean, we only have about 25,000 T-shares out in 2039. We're closing October of 2039 in the next couple of days. That means we'll only have 2 months left. So it's very unlikely we'll even get to 30,000. Maybe we will, but it's unlikely we'll get to 30,000 T-shirts. And so I've taken this standpoint of, okay, let's say the FUD's right, and people are never going to be interested in staking again. We're just going to have this level. That means if you project that out year over year, by the time you get to 2039, you'll only have 300,000 T-shirts. Right.
There's some
that's
time
the craziness there.
There's some time frames coming up here that are going to shock the shit out of everybody. 2025 is going to shock everybody to death, because what's going to happen in 2025, if we're still low prices in December, which I doubt, but even if we're not, even if the price spikes or the price drops, whatever.
I think the argument goes both ways. Yeah.
There's going to be a massive sell-off, or not sell-off, because they're not actually going to get any coins. So what's going to happen is there's going to be emergency on stakes all through 2025. Why do I say that? Because you're at the 5-year mark.
Oh, yeah.
5-year mark is where you can get your full principal back. Now, mind you,
one exception, but make sure
you will forfeit your big payday bonus, and you will forfeit your 5 years worth of yield. Okay. So here's the thing: at the 5-year mark, all those 10-year stakes, which are max, okay, you got to keep in mind that's max multiplier. All right. So a lot of people made the 10-year stakes as opposed to the 15-year stakes, They made the 10-year stakes because that was max of their multiplier. And all of that multiplier that they got is going to be forfeit.
Who does it go to?
So you will see higher payout days than we have ever seen in the history of Hex.
Here's a visual for you. So this is what Johnny's talking about.
See, Crispy's even got data for me. So I don't, because when I talk, people are like, "Oh, Johnny, you're just full of shit." No, you just can't see what I'm seeing.
Well, so for the true believers out there, be careful of the people who will tell you to merge the end stake, but that's not what they're doing. So be careful of those people because it will benefit them greatly.
Oh God, yes.
To convince you to merge the end stake. That being
said, unstake it all.
If you start seeing streams come up over and over again about how you should merge the end stake, be aware. Just be aware. Hey, maybe it's a good decision for you. I'm not saying it's not.
What Crispy's showing here is all that green. That gets paid to stakers if those people emergency unstake. See that blue? That's all they get. You see? That's all they get. So when they emergency unstake, they only get that little bitty blue portion, and that rest of that portion gets distributed back to the community for people that have T shares. How would you guys like to double your bags again? Wouldn't that be swell?
Let's go.
Well, I think it can happen. Well, so for those who aren't aware, right, what I'm looking on the screen is projected when stakes are going to end, and how much hex will be coming out, principal plus rewards, right? And then the blue is the principal, and the green is the reward. And so I hear this a lot. Like, it's a very strong commentary out there from people about merge the end stakes. Everybody's going to merge the end stake. Well, let's stop before we talk about that for a moment. Let's think about this. As shown, there would be a huge liquidity event at the end of 29 going into the beginning of 30, right? 2030. That would be a big liquidity event. What do I mean by that? You can see it on the screen. A ton of potential hex could be minted, right? A ton could be minted.
Assuming they go to term.
Survive.
Yeah, that's assuming they go to term.
Survive.
And I say 80% of all these 555s that were set pre big payday are going to not make it. They are not going to make it.
The rate, the emergency end stake rate's been like 15%, but you might be right. It might change. And that's because we are hearing it from people that they're thinking that's what's going to happen. And so if you put yourself in the frame of mind of someone who believes that this is going to happen, right? You're going to get 80% or 90% of that happen. What do you want to do? Well, I want to get out just before they do. I'm going to emergency end stake before the big rush, which only, well, if you're thinking that's what you're doing, that's what I do is I say, I want to front run that because I don't want a whole bunch of hex come out, and then I get stuck with a lower price.
But see, that's the thing with the deferred inflationary model. Okay. That's the thing with that is that when they emergency unstake, that hex does not hit the market. Only this much actually hits the market. So people are like, oh my God, they're going to sell. But only that much actually hits the market. The rest of it's distributed out into the future, and it's heavy weighted out to 15 years in the future.
Yeah.
So you're getting 3 times multiplier 15 years into the future. So they're getting a majority of that forfeited money there.
Yeah. Yeah. And so if that happens, if what we're talking about happens, right, and people, whether they make the decision themselves or they feel like they have to, and they do that, and those 2 bars go away, you no longer have a huge liquidity event taking place in 2930, and it gets spread out. All that green gets spread out against all those other candles. Now, when that happens, how does that change things? All of a sudden, the expected hex minting at that point goes way down.
Supply shock.
And all of a sudden you're like, there's not a lot of hex on any individual year coming out. And all of a sudden it makes hex a lot more scarce.
Yep.
But here's the kicker. Here's the kicker, right? We talk about that 80%. right? And that number going through and doing that, right? These wouldn't be the exact numbers because a lot of these rewards have not been earned yet. But all of a sudden, you're going to inflate half those penalties go to the OA. Yes.
Mm-hmm.
That means they're minted.
Mm-hmm.
And that means that all that minted hex is now part of the inflation calculation.
Yes.
So
The
what happens to
baseline,
payouts?
yeah, the baseline payout per day per T-share is going to go up regardless, and exponentially.
Yeah.
Because it's compounding that 3.69 times the supply times the new supply times 3.69. So the base rate of the payout per day per T-share goes up, then you get the penalty spikes.
Yeah.
So people don't realize that if T-shares are deflationary, the base rate continues to go up no matter what. So
Yeah,
you will end up with 20, 30 hex per day per T-share at some point.
It could be quite insane. Now I've been taking the viewpoint. Listen, I don't think it's going to happen this way, but if you're going to think tank something, you got to think tank multiple things. And so I've been think tanking one of my scenarios. Hey, what happens? What happens? These guys are right. Nobody comes back. We only have 30,000. That little tiny bar at the end, right? Going forward, only 30,000 T-shares a year, 25,000 T-shares a year. What happens to the system? Well, it's an easy calculation, right? I mean, we can guesstimate the numbers, divide the amount of hex at that point that would have been minted, multiply that by the factor per day. It comes up with like about 90 million hex being released per day to stakers only in inflation. That sends the
But
it sends the payout
it's
so
not
high.
released. But see, when we say inflation's released, it's not actually released.
It's accrued.
It's accredited to.
It's accredited,
right?
Right.
So when we say released, people are like, oh my God, all this is going to get dumped on our heads. No, it's a dynamic deferred inflationary model, which means the hex that's minted is only a fraction of the inflation that's actually distributed. And everything else is deferred and spread across multiple people, decentralized amongst multiple people. So you have less and less big threats because that gets spread out.
Mm-hmm.
You know,
yeah.
and
there's other options too other than dumping. Dumping is not the only thing you can do with your yield when you get hex. Like we have protocols that provide hex as collateral for stable coins. That's great. You can use that as a cash out option without selling, and still technically you hold your hex. And then there's liquidity providing on multiple levels, and farming, which often involves liquidity providing with PulseX and other protocols such as Fux and 2Fux on the Pulse chain, where you can use your hex to make money and have it liquid. So these people who
was getting that sales pitch in there.
Always.
Is one of those places 2P Hux?
2phux.io is the predominant blue chip hex farming option.
Well,
but that's not, there's things to do with your yield. You don't have
but
to.
You can do it on PulseX too and 9inch, right? I mean, obviously PulseX is out there as well.
Yeah.
What I like is there is a lot of things to do with your hex. That is very true. What Fast Abdul's pointed out is before you did not have all these options and different ways of locking up your hex. And now there are additional ways of doing it, whether you're liquidity providing, whether you're farming, whether you're, borrowing against your assets. There are all these different ways, which are just more ways of locking up your hex. Now, nothing beats staking as far as the yield, and people are going to see that soon enough.
Well, I'll add this to it. There's nothing beats staking in comparison to yield plus your risk. Right. And because people ignore the risk that's involved with everything, they look at the numbers and they're like, well, no, I can get 40% over here and I can get 30% over there and I can get 70% over here.
But 30%, 40% of what? We're talking about getting your own asset back.
Well, and not only that, there's risk not only in moving stuff because you're making transactions, but now you have to manage it and you have to watch it. And it's very infrequent that you don't have to make adjustments, and farms come down and farms go up. because things are going to change over time. But the hex contract's going to do the same thing, you know. Well, my point about this, about taking the FUD kind of position, this is a message to all the people who are staking already and have stakes that'll be out there, is if this dire situation or worse was to come about, the APY on Hex will go up in not only in the hundreds of percents, but possibly the thousands of percent, which is why I say it's so unlikely, because what'll happen is this, is at some point, somebody goes, wait a minute, you mean I can earn 50% for a short-term stake on Hex for a month? APY equivalent, not ROI.
And the
why wouldn't I do that? But here's the thing: is there's a lag, as you can see, because we have 4 years of downtrend in Quattro Cinco staking, right? Went down 75%, went down 75%, went down 75%, down 60%. That it is now an opportunity, and some people are taking that opportunity. Not everybody, but some people are. And so when
if you want a lottery ticket, throw a 555 out there. Punt.
Yeah,
you want a lottery ticket? That's your lottery ticket.
Yeah.
Go
and for the people who might jump on this, be like, you're telling people to do Quattro Cinco only. No, I'm not saying.
No, that's the punt. That's the scratch off. If you know, I've always told people, look, you need to ration yourself.
Have a ladder.
You know what?
Have a ladder.
Yeah, ration. You have to ration yourself. You know, you can't put everything out. So this was the thing. Like, you know, when everybody was on the 555 kick, it's like, yeah, guys, that's great, but you realize your price doesn't matter for 15 years. There is like no reason to look at the chart. If everything's out 555, you might as well just shut off your computer and go on vacation, because there is nothing to look at. Right. You know, you've already made your commitment. You only receive your coins if you complete your term. So you only set terms you can honor, and honor the terms you set, because the way it's designed is it completely undoes your progress. You know, now Archie's going to hate me for this one, but he was talking about putting out blocks, you know, instead of doing one big stake, putting out blocks 15 years. So that way you can take one off. Okay, you guys go ahead and take one off the wall. You would have been better off staking it for 7.5 years. And instead of ending a 15-year at 7.5 years, because you're forfeiting all of your yield, all of it, you forfeit it all, you know? So why not
the side ladder?
Yeah. Why not just set a time? Why not just set a time that you intend to honor it and come back and check on it then? Because everything between now and then doesn't matter.
You may not have ever heard of this before. There's something called certificates of deposit.
Yeah.
Out in TradFi. Actually, yeah, I'm joking about that. I know you've heard of those. But what I'm saying is there's tons of literature out there talking about the liquidity idea around CDs. Like, so CDs, how do you set up a CD ladder so that if you're using that for investment, or most people use it in retirement, how do you have enough when you need it? You build a ladder. And the reason you build the ladder is because, well, you would hope it longer pays better. In TradFi, that's no longer true. Longer pays less, but which is like the opposite of what we're doing. But you build that ladder first, so you have that liquidity. That's what you're referring to. But it means you have to really fund your ladder. You have to fund it.
Or if you're using it as a savings account, then really, you know, you're just putting money out there. You're going to address that when that term is up. You know, you're writing a contract to yourself saying that I am coming to pick this money up at this time. I will see what I have at this time. I mean, you have to realize that's what you're telling yourself. There is no way to cheat the truth engine. You cannot cheat the truth engine. Though many have tried, and they have paid us a lot of money because they have tried to cheat the truth engine. A lot of them happened right there just after big payday, when they're like, oh, wait, I don't get to keep my big payday bonus. No. If you are serving 1 day early, if you pull out 1 day early, all of your big payday bonus is forfeit.
100%.
So if you set a 555 before big payday, you don't get any of that if you end 1 day early.
Yeah, and so it's not like you get half of the
rewards. You don't get half.
You lose all of the rewards from the first half of the stake, including the big payday. Well, good news is we've got almost 1,800 unique addresses that have staked Quattro Cinco. in 2039, which is pretty strong. But people talk about there not being interest. There's some interest out there. So is that what we've seen in the past? No, but it's still quite a few. Now maybe
started out with about 5,000 people
we were first.
using Hex.
Yeah.
So that's an interesting number to compare to.
Well, yeah, and I suspect there's a lot more people that are devout hexagons that just aren't staking Quattro Cinco.
Not yet. Yeah.
Not yet. And I've moved to the point, so I'm looking at what we have. We don't even have a Poseidon yet for 2039. You know, we don't even have a wallet who's taken a 10% position of T-shares. Granted, it's a lot of T-shares to have, right? But we don't
3,000.
have a single wallet that has that many T-shirts. Because
How much does that cost now?
Well, for to be a Poseidon, it would be 2,461 T-shares, and even at the current price, that's kind of expensive for a regular person, right?
So how much is what is it, like 12,000?
Yeah, considering it's 1,000.
15,000?
If you look at eHex, it's $1,000 for 1 million hex, which you divide that up, you get what, 30 T-shares.
You may do the calc for him.
Well, if it's just 1 year, if it's just 1 year, it'd be like 30 some odd T-shares, I guess. Is 30,000?
What, 1 million hex?
Yeah,
1 million hex, roughly. We're at 35,000, right?
Yep.
And so it'd be roughly about 30 T-shirts. Yeah.
Well, look at that math on stream.
Well, it gets a little higher. Maybe it's about 34 T-shirts, but somewhere in that range.
30-ish. So
I'm
if
getting
1,000 for 1 million, and you got 30, then 30 for 1,000. So.
Yep. And so right now, and that's kind of a great way to talk about it, because if you put 30 T-shirts out into 2039 right now, at least in that point in time, right now, what we know, you would be a super shark.
So I've got 25 T-shares that the principal is currently $170, but it's 25 T-shares, okay, that I got for $170 a principal. All right, it is worth $900, somewhere around that. Okay, when it matures. So how much does it cost for 25 T-shares that I got for $170? And then somebody please tell me how I'm fucking up here.
Let me count the ways. I'm not sure what you're referring to. But.
No. I'm just saying the principal is only worth $170, and it's netted me.
Yeah.
Right now, one T-share is over $200. Yeah, I've got 25 that the principal is only $170. So it's like people will argue with you and like, oh, you're down. Aren't you down? No.
No, yeah, it's shiny. You mean shiny people? Yeah, shiny object people. Yeah.
So I've calculated quick math. If you need 2,500 T-shares to be a Poseidon only in the year 2039, which that's not really how we calculate Poseidons, but and then also people could add later on, but as of now in this very narrow calculation, it would at about $58 per T-share on PHEX, it would cost about $151,000 to get that type of a position.
So what other coin can we look at that has all these charts, Crispy? Everyone wants to say, everyone wants to put Hex in the everything else category. It's freaking hilarious to me. They want to drop it in the everything else bucket. Mm-hmm. They want to drop it in the everything else bucket, and then you have all these statistics and sites and all the intricate, all this game theory, all this, interesting intricacies of this, and we still have no direct answer. We only have modeling. All we can do is model, because what we can do is we can look at the code, we can look at the numbers, but what we can't really figure out is what human behavior is going to be with something like this that has never been done before.
Well, I can tell you what the really smart people are doing. that I'm seeing that are in here that are doing this type of staking. They're looking at things like Maddie's looking at. Now, of course, listen, most of us aren't going to be able to drop 150K in every day, or every year. But let's downscale it a little bit. Okay, go with Dolphin. Right.
Okay.
So a Dolphin out there is 2.46 T-shares. Right. It's $200.
Yeah. Yeah.
Right? So
you're right.
So if you're looking into the future now, just assume the year after that, 2040, which I'll start talking about in 2 months, right? 2040, we have similar adoption of T-shares, and let's just call it the same. So then you need to get 2.46 next year. And then let's say the year after it's the same. You need 2.46 until people wake up and decide to outbid you by putting more T-shares in there. And then maybe that number goes up. But again, using kind of the FUD methodology of, how bad everything's going to be. So what I've been saying is, hey, listen, we know that Dolphin has been a very successful level with Hex historically, right? It's within reach for most people, not everybody.
He's got the bullhorn on.
But you're talking about yeah, he's got it back. 200. You're talking about $200 a year. And if you were just to look at these kinds of numbers every year and just adjust so that you have enough in your stake every year enough so you can be at whatever level you want to be the next year, you're good to go. You can accelerate your position and stay there.
We're having a costume contest at the same time.
I was looking around. I got my Hex hat. That's it. But so.
Well, I got an advantage. I got a full entire costume shop. Just I'm not generally wearing.
So here's the challenge. Somebody out there maybe wants to go do it. Now would be a great time. It would be entertaining as hell to see this for somebody to go take a Poseidon position. So that would be a lot of fun to see that happen. But truly, this goes back to the reset thing we were talking about before. We have an opportunity. You have an opportunity, particularly if you're one of these younger people that's around here, to participate and do that. Yes, you should have other bases covered first. This is a long strategy. Maybe it's a scratcher, with Hex if you feel that way. Of course, some of us feel more confident than others. But certainly in the game of earning more Hex, you have this opportunity.
I want that outfit, Fast Abdul.
Nice.
That's so Joker, man. That's pimping right there.
It matches the Hex.
It's my outdoors camping outfit. It's sort of a nature thing. Hummingbirds like it.
I bet they do. Put a flower in your ear.
But on the T-shirts, what about the discount on Maximus DAO products on T-shirt price? Is there a chart for that?
Yeah, there's no chart per se.
But
Maddie has some good information on this.
Yeah, I've been looking at those numbers today, and I send a message to people in my Telegram group. Which one is it? Smart Vault Me, t.me/Smart Vault Me. I said, if you have $10 of dust on Pulse, you can buy 1 T-share of DESI from Ethereum on Pulse Chain. If you have $35 of dust on PLS, which maybe that's not dust anymore, but if you have $35 on Pulse, you can buy 1 T-share of DESI, like the PHEX version.
And that's a 10-year stake you buy into, right? Like an already started 10-year stake.
Yeah, both of these are at a discount relative to their net asset value, but also they're at a discount compared to even a 1-to-1 with Hex. And so I had calculated before that the amount of interest that's been accrued to these stakes has been over 60% now, I believe. And so you're earning this high rate back when the T-share rate was 7,800 Hex.
See,
so all you need 7,800 DESI to equal 1 T-share today, and you can get that for less than 7,800 Hex, even though it has already accrued 1.6x that.
So the problem with the derivatives are is really you're not going, unless you're going to purchase them at a discount and hold them to fruition, the prices are just going to be radical and all over the place, because
There's low liquidity.
until they're closer to redemption period, I mean, you're still in the same situation. People want them for the fact that they're liquid, but because they're liquid, they're more volatile. So,
But that can be positive if you're
if
choice hold. If you get a deal,
if you're a trader, yes, that's very positive. You can work those, but
No, but even if you're not a trader, if you can get DESI on a discount and then you hold it, then you win, right?
that is true.
That's
but
the point.
but the point that I'm making is that even with those derivatives, the point is of the derivative that it's liquid, but you still don't get the benefit of it unless you serve your term. So people that are in and out of those all the time, they're still missing the point. And the point is, set terms you can honor and honor the terms you set. Yes, if you can get a discount and you plan on holding them to fruition, they are not going to be close to their proper value until they are closer to the redemption period. That's when you're going to get a spike on their prices.
And
so until then, the volatility.
And you can't get size. You can't get size anyway, because if you want to buy 10 or 100 or 1,000 T-shares worth, you're going to push the price so far against yourself that you're going to lose any benefit that you would have had.
And you're going to pay somebody. You're going to pay somebody that's manipulating a liquidity gap too.
Right, but to your point though, Matty, about the number, if you try to swap a million pulse for DESI, Piteous at the moment is just showing just 3% slippage on that price, right? Yeah. So, yeah, I would urge anybody who's going to go look at DESI, you have to buy very slowly. That's all. Let the market.
And let me emphasize this a little bit more. There are only a few of those coins out there, and there are what's called liquidity gaps. Okay, liquidity gap occurs when all of a sudden you acquire all the damn coins, and you're like going along, and you're like, okay, I'm getting a little, and then you put in a big order, and guess what? It goes from this price here to this price here, and some smartass will have a bid up there and let you buy them for 100x, and you won't even know that you have given them 100x the price, because you're too busy punching buttons. So in low availability coins, you have to watch that very carefully, trying to go in with size because of those liquidity gaps. And I assure you, I know people that will set 100x prices and have been filled. Okay. And I don't recommend you try that, because since I've said that, a lot of people have been doing that, and a lot of people have been able to score a few here and there. But the more people that know about it and the more people to do it, the less probability of you getting filled. Okay. Yeah. But as a caution to the purchasers, don't get caught in that trap. And I'm only saying this because I don't have to feel bad about taking your money because you do something stupid. Okay.
Boom.
Yeah. So what you're saying is there's times
people can just learn what they're doing, right?
Do what? I couldn't.
People could learn how to do these things properly, right? Like there's ways to set limit orders on Pulse Chain.
Yes.
Like Omnis made by the Tetra. You can set limit orders.
I spent a year on limit orders, man. People still smash that damn sell button. I spent a year on telling people limit orders, and until I started talking about liquidity gaps and telling people what you could do with liquidity gaps, they would not use limit orders to save their life. Now everybody's waiting on liquidity gaps, and then they get frustrated and they don't fill, so they sell. They just hit market dump. And then you get stuff like Maxi and DESI and everything taking a spaz because it's a liquid coin, and people are like, oh, I'm tired of waiting now.
The impatient paying the patient, you say?
That's how that works.
That's how it works.
Yeah, and what you're referring to, Johnny, is that when there is not enough liquidity in certain ranges, you'll see those giant wicks, and then somebody potentially can get filled if they have a limit order that's set in that range.
Potentially, I know for a fact people have been filled.
Yeah. Yeah, but it's not a guarantee. But yes, it
It's
does.
not a guarantee. And you have to look at the liquidity pools and find out what's illiquid, and pay attention to that and set the traps. And hopefully someone triggers the traps. But again, this is trading behavior. This is tricking people, right? This is chasing lottery tickets and hoping that your trap gets filled, when literally you could just there's something that already has single-sided staking, works pretty good. It's been working pretty good this whole time, right? It always pays what it owes.
There's a place for both things.
Hex.
Like people can learn how stuff works, right? So like how Hex works is there's very little contract risk. You got single-sided staking, but these Maximus DAO things, like they're lower liquidity, though not that low on some of the products. There's quite a bit on the Fox Exchange. But see, if people are holding them for fruition, like we said, if people are holding them for fruition and are using them properly, there's very little of them on the market. You see what I'm saying? If people are using them as intended, there's only a couple out there. $100,000, that's hard. But if you want to buy $1,000, you can get $1,000 a Maxi token without much slippage, and that's a 15-year Hex stake that you're buying into that's already been started, right? Mm-hmm. So, and then if you want to, then let's say you buy Maxi on discount, already started Hex stake, right? And then you want to save yourself from yourself, which is one of the features of Hex, is that you're penalized for not doing the right thing. So now with the Maxi token, then maybe you have an option to sell it all the time, which could be both positive or negative. But if you want to save yourself from not doing that, maybe there'd be an additional protocol somewhere where you could lock those up, maybe get some sort of time lock. We could actually get a discount on Maxi and then lock the Maxi tokens so you couldn't sell them, or at least not with one click, right? Like really increasing the number of clicks before you can sell something helps too. Do you guys know of anything where we could lock Maxi token?
I've actually come back from the future with a protocol that's been audited called timepays.me, and you can time lock your perpetuals or your Maximus DAO tokens there, and it'll drip back to yourself, or you can set it all for one date in the future. You could even use those tokens to pay yourself to do a healthy behavior.
By the way, I feel like we are now living that freaking Wayne's World video I posted earlier. Now for a word from our sponsors. We've got two.
I actually went to YouTube and watched that. Yeah.
Did you watch that?
Yeah.
And so the most important thing is that people need to be in a position where they don't need to sell. That's the position you need to be in. You need to be in a position where you don't need to sell and you can afford to wait. However you got to set up your ladder, however you got to set up anything that you got, be in a position where you don't need to sell. That means if you're going to dollar cost average in, you're using your beer money, your strip club money, your club money, whatever money you got laying around, money you're going to blow on fireworks, whatever, the money that you're not using, that's the money that you need to play with. Nobody should be going, oh my God, I put my life savings in here and now I'm screwed, right? Nobody should be doing that. I can't stand the fact that, we have people that are just so gun-ho, and then they set terms that they can't honor, and then they're frustrated, and it's just a bad vibe, man. It's just a bad vibe. If you set up to begin with, whether you're providing liquidity, okay, whether you're keeping some tokens liquid and you're providing liquidity in your LPN, and you've got your stakes, be in a position for you. Only you can make that decision. You have to be in a position where you can say, okay, I can afford to wait. I'm not spending my rent money. I'm not spending my car note. Okay. I'm making sure the family's fed. I'm making sure my power bills are paid. Okay. Don't be in crisis mode, because if you're in crisis mode, you're guaranteed to fail. You are guaranteed to fail if you put yourself in crisis mode. It's too much for anybody to carry. And I hate that people do that. And I hate that they get squirreled so easy. They're like, nothing's happening here right now. Let me go here. 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 And they're just jumping around because they're just so desperate for something to happen right now. I mean, that's not what we've ever taught in this community. What we taught in the community is to pay your future self, you know? And it's just frustrating to see people that are getting pushed beyond their limits. And I know that those stakes are going to come undone. We pump to $1. How much are emergency unstakes? If we pump to $1 tomorrow, how many people you think would emergency unstake? How much of that would just get cleared the hell out?
It'd be huge. But that being said, does that change what people should do? If they're not going to do the right thing, maybe they should plan to do something different.
Yeah, I agree.
Farming. You could farm and you could keep your tokens and then get yield in other tokens and then be able to take something.
Yeah, but fast to do. I want my million now. I want my million now. I can't wait for 10 years for it to generate $1 million.
All right. Say you want to make $1 million.
That's
okay. Most people working their whole entire life will not make $1 million.
Goddamn right. Well, now they might
Most people working their whole life are not going to make $1 million ever in their life. You want $1 million right now?
In the world.
You want $1 million right now, but you know that most people will never make $1 million in their entire life. Let's be realistic here. Most people will retire with less than that. Okay. And they will be feeding their 401k, their IRAs, for a couple $100,000 and draw Social Security, and that's what they will end up doing. Okay, and so you got 30 years of an IRA or 40 years of a 401k, and you still might not make $1 million, but you guys can't wait a couple cycles. Let's be realistic here. You can't wait a couple cycles. You can't build over a couple years and a couple cycles. Is 4 to 8 years too long? Well, okay. Well, there's the alternative. Go ahead and feed your 401k or your IRA. Let them print that inflation out to nothing. Watch those stock markets up and crash where you've got no gains. You're lucky to get what? 10, 15% a year? What's your alternative? What other options do you really have? What's going to be around in 5 to 10 years? What's going to be around? You're going to have to make those decisions. You're going to have to ask those questions and make those decisions. How much time is enough for you? Can you plan for the future in 4 to 8 years, or does it have to be right now? What's your alternative?
Yeah, I think that's a big point that you're making, Johnny. Just in general, right, with financial planning and people trying to figure out how they're going to save for retirement. The numbers are so big in the first place. It hurts their heads. So you got a lot of people.
It took me 30 years to build a business.
A lot of people will blow it up. Yeah, but they don't want 30 years. They want to have your business now.
Right. Well, good luck with that.
So,
I hear people all the time. I want your business. Well, you want to buy mine? I'll sell it to you. Because it's going to take you 30 years to get here.
Mm-hmm. Well, I think it's the same thing with your financial goals, right? It takes time, even in crypto, even though I don't want to say it this way, because I like to be instantly rich as well. I mean, we have a lot more opportunity in crypto, but it takes time. But like you said, it takes time.
Well, you can't play the lottery ticket game because the game is opened up. Okay. Anybody can make a coin now. You can chase all these wild things and you can follow the green candles and you can play that all you want. But eventually you're going to get burnt, period. Eventually you will get burnt. So you better find something that has some kind of staying power.
Yeah. Well, there's certainly, I'm pretty sure anybody who's been around here a little bit already knows.
Fast Abdul's got a great way of, getting his point made without ever saying a word. He's got his commercial flashes across there. And well, anyway, guys, I didn't plan on staying through this whole thing. I didn't want to interrupt everybody's regular scheduled program. I just kind of wanted to set the thing straight on the court case stuff. I've actually got tons of work stuff that I got to do because I got real popular in the off season. I ended up getting really popular here. So I got new contracts with a medical company coming up, and I've been helping my buddy with his business, and his orders are taking off now, and I've got production to run for him. So I'm working, guys. I'm working. I'm setting Hex as my retirement account. Pushing my shares out there, letting it collect, let it do what it's doing. Oh, this is the point I wanted to make. Crispy, you know how people are like, well, who cares about T-shares because they're not worth anything? You know how people do that?
Yeah, I heard it all the time.
Yeah. And they're like, well, it doesn't matter if you got T-shares, if you're earning Hex and it's worth a fraction of a penny. Let me remind you people, once upon a time, Bitcoin's very first listing price on exchanges, and you can look it up, Goxit, look it up, or Grog, right? 1309 for $1. Bitcoin, 1309 for $1 was Bitcoin's official first listing price. So I guess if you were mining 50 Bitcoin blocks and you had to have 1309 for them to be $1, I bet those wouldn't seem like much to you either. So I guess mining Hex right now, that's a fraction of a penny, is actually worth a lot more than mining Bitcoin back in the day when it was 1309 for $1. So think about that while you're earning coins every single day on stakes that don't end for several years, and think about what that price is going to be in the future instead of what it is right now when nobody cares. And that is it.
Yeah. Well, thanks for joining us, Johnny. We really appreciate you coming on and giving your philosophy on Hex and wisdom, as well as the update on the court stuff. So thank you.
Thanks for having me, guys. Enjoy the rest of your show here. Like I said, stuff to do. Good to see you.
Peace
Take
out.
care.
Well, I think we're wrapping up here. People who started from the beginning of the show got the update on the other two court things that we talked about. Kareem should be getting out today or tomorrow. We're looking forward to hearing from him on whatever streams he decides to join. And also, we got an update on South Carolina that you can rewind for. And then somebody had asked in the chat what was the principle of the DESI stakes, and I responded that it's 565 million Hex, and at maturity for 72,500 T shares should come out to something like 2.3 billion Hex divided up there. So, boom.
It's better than a kick in the pants.
And are you the captain now?
I'm the captain now.
I make captain jokes, but almost nobody would know the captains I'd refer to.
All as well.
So I don't know if you guys have anything else as we wrap up here with the show.
Yeah, I think we covered the good stuff. We got the court case. We got the mega Hex
Times
staking
3.
alpha.
Yes.
It's times 3. You got maybe Kareem coming on streams in the future, right?
Yeah.
Sounds like fun. Yeah.
Totally.
Hope
Well, thanks to both of you guys for being here. Can you tell people where to find you?
Yeah, if you open up the Hex contract, you'll see me in there. Hexfire.io.
Very cool.
Nice. I can be found at 2phux.io. That's 2, the number 2, then phux.io. And there's links to our Telegram room in there. And we can tell you all about how you can farm with Hex and other interesting tokens.
We have 128 watching live on YouTube, usually a couple thousand on the replay. We have one person watching on Twitch. Shout out to you.
Woohoo!
And allegedly 500 on Twitter. Hit the like and subscribe button. Share this out. Hopefully this was a more upbeat stream and something that was intellectually stimulating for people as usual. This is another episode of Game Theory Gang. And you can find all my content at mati.pls.fyi. And yeah, until next time, stake wisely, my friends, and peace out.
Peace out. Stay crispy. I usually tell people to stake Hex.
Stake Hex.
Cuatro Cinco.